My own son and his wife took me to a fancy restaurant and fed me their leftovers. Not once. Not by accident. But like I was some afterthought. Like I was lucky to even be sitting at the table. And the worst part? It wasn't the first time. Before I tell you what happened next, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Because some stories aren't just stories, they're warnings. Now let me tell you what it feels like when your own child slowly erases you. It started on a Sunday afternoon. "Mom, get dressed," my son Daniel said over the phone. "We're taking you somewhere nice." Somewhere nice? I hadn't been somewhere nice in a long time. Ever since my husband passed, I mostly stayed home. I baked. I read. I tried not to feel like furniture in my own family. But that day, I put on my blue cardigan. The one Daniel used to say made me look classy. I even put on lipstick. Silly, right? A 72-year-old woman getting butterflies because her son invited her out. When they picked me up, my daughter-in-law, Ashley, barely looked at me. "Oh, you wore that," she said with a tight smile. "Goo. Goo." Like I was a child playing dress-up. We drove to a trendy downtown place. All glass walls and hanging lights. The kind of restaurant where the menus don't have prices unless you ask. Ashley took photos of the drinks. Daniel checked his phone. I folded my hands in my lap. When the waiter came, Ashley ordered first. Of course she did. "I'll have the ribeye medium rare. And truffle fries. Oh, and the lobster mac. We'll share." Daniel nodded. "Same for me." Then they both looked at me. I smiled politely. "I'll just have the grilled chicken, please." Ashley laughed. "Oh, don't be boring. Mom, their portions are huge. Just share with us." I hesitated. I don't like sharing plates. I never have. But I didn't want to be difficult. "Okay," I said softly. The food came. Beautiful. Steaming. Smelling like butter and garlic and everything warm in the world. They ate first. Not offered. Not paused. They dug in. Ashley sliced into the steak, moaning dramatically. "Oh my God, this is insane." Daniel laughed. "Mom, you'd love it." Would I? I watched them eat. I waited for a plate to be passed. It didn't happen. 10 minutes went by. Then Ashley leaned back in her chair, dabbing her lips with a napkin. "Oh my gosh, I'm stuffed." Daniel pushed his plate forward. "Yeah, I can't finish this." And then finally, he looked at me. "You can have the rest, Mom." The rest. Half-chewed steak edges. Cold fries. Mac and cheese scraped to the side of a plate already dragged through sauce. I felt something inside me drop. Not break. Just drop. Like an elevator cable snapping quietly. "Oh," I said. "Thank you." I ate it. Because what else was I supposed to do? The waiter came back. "Everything tasting great?" Ashley beamed. "Amazing." No one asked if I had ordered. No one asked if I needed anything. On the drive home, Ashley said, "See? That worked out perfectly. No wasted food." Worked out perfectly. I stared out the window the whole ride. And here's the part that hurts the most. It wasn't the first time. It happened at Thanksgiving. It happened at Lily's birthday dinner. It happened at brunch last spring. Every time, I was an afterthought. A plate for later. A stomach that could wait. But that night something changed. Because when we pulled into my driveway, and I reached for the door handle, I heard Ashley whisper something she thought I couldn't hear. She barely eats anyway. It's not like she notices. But I did notice. And that was the moment I decided something. If they thought I didn't matter at the table, then I would build my own table. And next time, I wouldn't be the one eating leftovers. Oh no. Next time, they'd be the ones watching me eat. And they would finally understand what it feels like to be hungry in front of someone who doesn't care. But I didn't tell them that. Not yet. Because revenge, my dear, is best served hot. And mine was just getting started. The morning after that restaurant dinner, I didn't wake up sad. I woke up clear. Not angry. Not hysterical. Not dramatic. Just clear. You see, when you've lived as long as I have, you learn something important. Heartbreak isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a slow drip. A steady erosion. And sometimes, it's served to you on a half-empty plate. I stood in my kitchen that morning, sunlight pouring through the curtains, and I opened my refrigerator. Eggs. Fresh berries. Spinach. Sourdough bread I baked myself. I wasn't poor. I wasn't helpless. So why did I let myself sit there last night like I needed scraps? Why did I thank them? That's the part that keeps older women quiet. We're trained to be grateful for inclusion, even when inclusion feels like humiliation. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Strong. Black. Just the way I like it. And I thought about all the other times. The Thanksgiving when Ashley filled everyone's plates first. Generous scoops of turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, and then handed me a plate already picked through. "Oh, sorry, Mom," she'd laughed. "You don't eat much anyway." I remember nodding, smiling, saying, "This is perfect." It wasn't perfect. It was a pattern. And the more I replayed it in my mind, the more something sharp started forming behind my ribs. Not bitterness. Awareness. You want to know something funny? Daniel wasn't always like this. When he was 7 years old, he used to insist I sit first at the dinner table. "Ladies first," he'd say proudly. I taught him that. I taught him to respect women. So where did that boy go? Or worse, when did he decide I wasn't one anymore? My phone buzzed. Ashley. Of course. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," she sang in that syrupy voice she uses when she wants something. "Just wanted to check on you. You had fun last night, right?" Fun. I stared at the steam rising from my coffee. "It was lovely," I said evenly. "Good. I told Daniel we should do that more often. It's just easier if we share food, you know? Saves money." Saves money. They both drive new cars. Ashley owns 3 designer handbags. Daniel just upgraded his phone. But I'm the budget cut. "Of course," I replied. There was a pause. Then she added, "You don't mind, right? I mean, you barely eat." There it was again. That narrative. The one where I'm small. Shrinking. Convenient. "I eat when I'm served," I said calmly. She laughed like I'd told a joke. "Oh my God, you're funny." No, I wasn't. After we hung up, I walked into my dining room. My table sits 6. Solid oak. My husband and I bought it 35 years ago. Paid for it in cash. I hosted every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation dinner at that table. People once waited for my cooking. They once complimented my roast, my pies, my seasoning. Now, I was treated like I didn't have taste buds, like I didn't have dignity. I ran my fingers along the wood, and something clicked. Not rage. Strategy. You see, I may be 72, but I am not done. And if there's one thing you should never underestimate, it's a woman who has spent her whole life feeding others. Because when she decides to feed herself instead, oh honey, that's when things change. I picked up my old recipe box from the kitchen drawer. Handwritten cards. Chicken potpia. Seafood chowder. Apple cobbler. My late husband used to joke, "Martha, you could open your own restaurant." I used to laugh. I'm not laughing anymore. I stood there in my quiet house, holding those recipe cards, and for the first time in years, I felt hungry. Not for food, for respect. And that afternoon, while Ashley was probably telling her friends how sweet but fragile I am, I drove downtown, to that same trendy area, and I started asking questions. About leasing spaces. About small storefronts. About permits. The realtor looked at me over her glasses and said, "Are you starting a business?" I smiled. "Yes." She raised an eyebrow. "At your age?" There it was again. "At your age?" I leaned forward slightly. "At my age," I said, "I don't waste time." She blinked. Then she handed me the keys to view a small corner space. Brick walls. Big windows. A kitchen in the back. Nothing fancy, but it was mine to imagine. And as I stood there in that empty room, I didn't see peeling paint. I saw tables. I saw candles. I saw plates served hot, whole, untouched. And I saw one particular evening, one particular table, and 2 particular guests, watching me eat. Not waiting, not sharing, not scraping, eating. I locked the door behind me and walked to my car with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement. Because the next time my son took me to dinner, it wouldn't be his invitation. It would be mine. And he wouldn't recognize the woman sitting across from him. But before I could make any of that happen, I needed to make one phone call. And that call was going to change everything. The call I made that afternoon wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. There were no threats. No tears. Just a woman sitting in her car outside a small brick storefront, staring at a for lease sign, and finally deciding she was done waiting to be chosen. I dialed the number on the listing. "Hello, this is Mark," a deep voice answered. "Yes," I said, steady and polite. "My name is Martha Collins. I just viewed the corner space on 8th and Willow." A pause. "Oh, right." The older lady looking at the cafe spot. Older lady. I almost smiled. "Yes. I'd like to move forward." Another pause. Longer this time. "You're serious?" "I don't joke about business." Silence again. Then a small shift in his tone. "All right, Mrs. Collins. Let's talk details." And just like that, the first brick was laid. That evening, Daniel stopped by unexpectedly. He didn't call. He never calls anymore. He just shows up when it's convenient for him. "Hey, Mom," he said, stepping inside like the house still ran on his permission. "Ashley said you sounded weird today." Weird. That word they use when you stop playing your assigned role. "I'm fine," I said, walking toward the kitchen. "Would you like coffee?" He checked his watch. "I can't stay long." "Of course you can't. You never can." I poured 2 cups anyway. He sat at the table, my table, scrolling his phone. I studied him quietly. My son. My baby boy. The child I fed before myself for years. The boy who once cried if I skipped dessert. "When's the last time we had dinner here?" I asked casually. He looked up, confused. "Here." "Yes. At my house." He shrugged. "I don't know. Busy schedules, Mom. You know how it is." "Ah. Busy. Funny how busy people still find time for steakhouses." "I was thinking," I continued, "maybe I'll host something soon." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Oh. Okay. For what?" "For me." That made him blink. "For you." "Yes," I said simply. He chuckled awkwardly. "You don't need a reason to cook, Mom." "No. I don't. But I do need a reason to stop shrinking." He stood up, adjusting his jacket. "Anyway, Ashley just wanted to make sure you weren't upset about last night." I held his gaze. "Should I have been?" He hesitated. "I mean, you're sensitive sometimes." Sensitive. There it was. The word they use when you feel something they don't want to acknowledge. "I'm not sensitive," I said calmly. "I'm observant." He frowned slightly. "It was just food, Mom." "No. It wasn't. It was positioning. It was priority. It was respect, or the lack of it." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. Because arguing would make me emotional. Explaining would make me defensive. And I was neither. "Tell Ashley thank you for checking on me," I said. He nodded, relieved I wasn't making it a scene. That's the thing about people who slowly disrespect you. They count on your silence. When he left, I locked the door behind him and stood there in the quiet. He really believes it was just food. He really believes I'm being sensitive. Good. Let him. The best revenge doesn't shout. It builds. Over the next week, I moved fast. Faster than I've moved in years. Paperwork. Permits. Health inspections. I met with a retired chef named Luis who used to run a diner before it closed during the pandemic. He tasted my chicken pot pie recipe and closed his eyes. "Ma'am," he said softly, "this tastes like somebody's childhood." I almost cried. Not because of the compliment, but because someone finally tasted my food without scraping it off someone else's plate. We talked numbers. Menu ideas. Portion sizes. Generous. I said firmly. No tini plats. No decorative nonsense. Real food. He grinned. "I like you." By the end of the week, the lease was signed. 3 months from now, that little brick corner would open its doors. And it wouldn't be trendy. It wouldn't be flashy. It would be warm. It would be welcoming. And no one would ever be handed leftovers. Not in my establishment. Ashley called again the following Sunday. Are you free next weekend? She asked casually. We're thinking of trying that new Italian place. You can come if you want. If I want. I pictured it already. Them ordering first. Me waiting. A fork pushed toward me with a rehearsed smile. I'm busy next weekend, I said sweetly. Oh. With what? I let just a tiny smile curve my lips. I'm opening a restaurant. Dead silence. You're what? Yes, I repeated calmly. A restaurant. Downtown. She laughed. Not kindly. Oh my God. Martha. That's adorable. Adorable. That word again. I'll send you the opening date, I said. She recovered quickly. Well, good luck with that. I hung up before she could say anything else. Adorable. Sensitive. Older lady. Barely eats. They've underestimated me at every turn. And that's exactly why this is going to work. Because when opening night comes, when the tables are full, when the food is hot and whole and beautifully plated, I won't invite them right away. No. I'll wait. I'll let them hear about it from someone else. I'll let curiosity build. I'll let pride sting. And then, I'll choose the night. The perfect night. To sit at my own table. Order everything I want. And eat every single bite. While they watch. But before that happens, something unexpected is about to shake my resolve. Because just when I thought I was in control, Ashley made a move I didn't see coming. I should have known Ashley wouldn't just sit back and let me build something. Women like her don't ignore threats. They eliminate them. 3 days after I told her about the restaurant, I got a call from Mark, the leasing agent. His voice didn't sound casual this time. Mrs. Collins, I just received an email regarding your application. My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed calm. From who? A woman claiming to be your daughter-in-law. Ah, there it is. What did she say? I asked evenly. A small pause. She expressed concern about your mental clarity. Said you've been confused lately, that you may not fully understand the financial commitment you're making. I didn't speak for a moment. I just stared at the wall in my kitchen. Mental clarity. Confused. There's a special kind of cruelty in trying to erase someone by calling them unstable. I see, I said quietly. She also asked if I had verified your access to funds, and suggested I speak to your son before finalizing anything. Suggested. As if she were being helpful. As if she were protecting me. But what she was really doing, she was trying to shrink me again. Make me small. Make me dependent. Make me look incapable. I straightened my shoulders. Mark, I said clearly. I have owned my home for 35 years. It's paid off. I have zero debt. My savings are substantial. And I am in full control of my finances. Another pause. Yes, ma'am, he replied, tone shifting. And just for the record, I added. No one speaks on my behalf unless I ask them to. Yes, ma'am, he repeated. When we hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I got angry. Not explosive anger. Focused anger. The kind that makes your vision sharp. So this is her move. If she can't mock it, she'll sabotage it. If she can't belittle it, she'll question my sanity. I picked up my purse and drove straight to the bank. If she wanted to play smart, she picked the wrong woman. At the bank, I met with my financial advisor, Mr. Harris, a man I've known since before Ashley entered the picture. He adjusted his glasses when I told him what happened. She contacted your leasing agent, he asked. Yes. And implied you're not competent? Yes. His expression hardened. Well, Mrs. Collins, let me assure you, your accounts are solid. More than solid. I folded my hands on the desk. I want everything documented. Letters. Statements. Proof of liquidity. I don't want anyone questioning my capacity. He nodded firmly. You have every right to pursue a business venture. I held his gaze. At my age. He smiled slightly. At any age. That was the first time someone said that to me without a trace of doubt. When I left the bank, I felt stronger. Not because of the money. Because of the confirmation. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't reckless. I was capable. And she knew it. That's why she was afraid. That night, Daniel showed up again. This time, he didn't pretend it was casual. "Mom," he said, stepping inside quickly. "Ashley told me you're opening a restaurant. Is that true?" "Yes." He exhaled hard. "She's worried about you." "Of course she is." "Is she?" I asked softly. "She thinks it's a lot of stress. Financial risk. You know, at this stage." At this stage. There it is again. When did my stage become a limitation? I asked calmly. He ran a hand through his hair. "She just doesn't want you getting overwhelmed." "She emailed my leasing agent." His head snapped up. "She what?" She questioned my mental state. Silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't know how to defend itself. "She said you've been confused lately." I continued evenly. His face changed. Not anger yet, but discomfort. "She was probably just trying to make sure you're okay," he said weakly. Daniel. Still protecting her. Even when the facts are right in front of him. "Did you know she did that?" I asked. "No." "Did I ask her to speak for me?" "No." I nodded slowly. That's the difference between concern and control. He didn't argue. But he didn't apologize either. He stood there, caught between loyalty and logic. And that's when I realized something important. Ashley isn't just afraid of my restaurant. She's afraid of what it represents. Independence. Visibility. Power. Because the moment I'm not the quiet, grateful mother in the corner, the moment I sit at the head of my own table, her position shifts. And she knows it. Before he left, Daniel looked at me carefully. "You're really doing this?" "Yes." He hesitated. "What if it fails?" I smiled gently. "What if it doesn't?" He didn't have an answer. 2 weeks later, construction started. Brick cleaned. Floors polished. A new sign ordered. And I chose the name carefully. Second Serving. Luis laughed when I told him. "I love it," he said. "Why that?" I smiled softly. "Because everyone deserves one." But what I didn't say. Some people deserve to watch you take yours. Business picked up faster than expected. Word spread about the grandma opening a comfort food spot. People love a story. They just don't know the whole one yet. And then, just when things were finally settling into place, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Ashley. Sitting in a parked car across from my storefront. Watching. Not smiling. Not supportive. Watching. And the way she was looking at that building? It wasn't jealousy. It was calculation. And that's when I realized. She's not done trying to stop me. Not even close. And what she does next. It forces my son to choose. I didn't confront her when I saw her sitting across the street. I didn't walk over. I didn't wave. I just stood inside my half-finished restaurant, my restaurant, and watched her through the glass. Ashley sat in her car with both hands on the steering wheel. Not scrolling. Not on the phone. Just staring. Like she was studying an enemy. That's when it hit me. This was never about food. It was never about sharing plates or saving money or me barely eating. It was about control. And control doesn't like competition. Especially not from someone it already downgraded. That evening, I didn't call Daniel. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, he called me. "Mom," he said, voice tight. "Can we talk?" "Of course." He came over 20 minutes later. No small talk. No yakitrimubel. He stayed standing in my living room like he didn't trust himself to sit. "I need you to tell me something honestly," he said. "All right. Did Ashley contact anyone else about your restaurant?" "Ah. So something happened." "She contacted the leasing agent," I said calmly. "And implied I wasn't mentally fit." He shut his eyes briefly. "She also called the bank." I felt my chest go still. "She what?" "She tried to request information about your accounts." "They refused, obviously." "But Mom," he swallowed. "She told them she was concerned about elder financial exploitation." I stared at my son. "Exploitation." I repeated. "She implied someone might be taking advantage of you. That maybe this restaurant idea wasn't really yours." There it was. The final card. If she couldn't shrink me quietly, she'd frame me as fragile. If she couldn't stop the business, she'd make me look manipulated. And the most painful part? She used concern as the disguise. Daniel finally sat down. I didn't know, he said quietly. She didn't tell me she was doing that. Do you believe her? I asked gently. He looked at the floor. She says she was protecting you. I let the silence stretch. She says you've been acting impulsive lately. Impulsive? Because I signed a lease? Because I made a decision without asking permission? Or because I stopped accepting leftovers? She says you're trying to prove something. I met his eyes. I am. That surprised him. What? I'm proving I still exist. He went quiet. And something in his face shifted. Not confusion. Recognition. You really were hurt that night, he said slowly. Yes. He leaned back like the air had been knocked out of him. Mom, it was just dinner. No, I said softly. It was a pattern. And then for the first time, I didn't protect him from the truth. Daniel, when was the last time I ordered my own meal with you? He opened his mouth, closed it, thought. He couldn't answer. When was the last time you served me first? I asked. Silence again. And when was the last time you noticed? That's when it hit him. I saw it in his eyes. Not anger. Shame. I didn't realize, he whispered. No. I agreed gently. You didn't. Because ignoring small disrespect is easier than confronting it. Because defending your wife feels simpler than questioning her. Because believing your mother is sensitive protects your marriage. But truth? Truth doesn't care about comfort. He sat there for a long moment, staring at his hands. Then he said something I never expected. She's been calling you forgetful for months. I didn't react. She tells people you repeat yourself. I stayed calm. She says you get confused. I smiled faintly. And do I? He shook his head slowly. No. There it was. The crack. The moment the illusion started collapsing. She told me you'd probably waste money on something dramatic eventually, he admitted. I didn't even flinch. She said you'd want attention. I leaned forward slightly. Daniel. He looked up. I spent 40 years cooking for this family without applause. His throat tightened. I cleaned, hosted, baked, remembered birthdays, stayed up during fevers, packed lunches, and never once asked for attention. Silence. I am not looking for attention, I continued evenly. I am building something. And that's when he finally said it. She's jealous. The word hung in the air. Jealous. Of what? My independence? My savings? My ability to build something without her? Or maybe, she's jealous that the moment I stand tall, her power shrinks. Daniel stood up slowly. I saw her today, he said. Where? Parked across from your building. Ah. So he saw it too. She said she was just curious, he added. But she looked angry. I nodded once. She is. He took a deep breath. She asked me something this morning. What? He hesitated. She asked if your house was still in your name. The air shifted. And what did you say? I asked calmly. I said yes. Good. Because what he didn't know yet is that it wouldn't be much longer. Not like that. Not accessible. Not vulnerable. He ran a hand down his face. Mom, I think I've been ignoring things. I didn't say I know. I didn't say finally. I just let him arrive there on his own. She doesn't like that you don't need her, he continued quietly. That was the closest he'd ever come to the truth. I don't need anyone to eat, I said gently. I just need to be served like I matter. His eyes filled. Not dramatic tears, but real ones. I'm sorry, he whispered. And that was the first time it felt genuine. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Just honest. But honesty comes with a price. Because the moment Daniel starts seeing clearly, Ashley will realize she's losing control. And women who are losing control, they escalate. 2 nights later, the health department showed up at my restaurant. Unannounced. With complaints. Serious ones. And guess who filed them? The health inspector walked in at 9:17 a.m. Clipboard. Neutral expression. Official badge. I'm here regarding an anonymous complaint, she said. But not really. I already knew. Ashley doesn't fight fair. She fights quietly. Behind scenes. Through systems. What kind of complaint? I asked calmly. Improper food storage. Unlicensed food handling. Unsanitary kitchen conditions. Luis, who was organizing dry goods behind the counter, froze mid-step. Unsanitary? We weren't even open yet. We'd passed every scheduled inspection so far. Permits were filed. Licenses were posted. Temperatures logged. Everything documented. But an anonymous complaint triggers a surprise inspection. And surprise inspections? They're designed to catch you off guard. The inspector walked slowly through the kitchen, checking fridge temperatures, looking under sinks, testing sanitizer levels. Luis whispered, "This is sabotage." I nodded slightly, but I didn't panic. Because here's something Ashley forgot about me. I ran a household for decades. I've passed more inspections in my life than she's hosted dinner parties. And I don't cut corners. After 40 minutes, the inspector closed her clipboard. "Everything appears compliant," she said evenly. "No violation. No citation. No shutdown." "Thank you," I replied. She paused at the door. "These complaints seemed personal," she added carefully. "You may want to consider who's trying to disrupt your opening." I gave her a polite smile. "I already have." When she left, Luis exhaled loudly. "Whoever filed that wanted to scare you." "They wanted to stop me," I corrected. "There's a difference. Scare is emotional. Stop is strategic. Ashley isn't emotional. She's calculated." That afternoon Daniel called. "Did the health department come by?" So she told him. "Yes," I said calmly. "They found nothing." Silence on the other end. Then a quiet, "Mom." "Yes." She filed the complaint. "There it is. No pretending now. No surprise," I said. He sounded exhausted. I confronted her. "And?" She said she was just making sure you weren't in over your head. Yes. Concern. Disguised control. Again. She said someone needs to protect you from yourself. I almost laughed. Protect me from myself. "Daniel," I said softly. "Have I ever needed protecting from cooking? No. Have I ever needed protecting from budgeting? No. Then what exactly does she think I can't handle?" He didn't answer. Because the truth is uncomfortable. She doesn't think I can't handle it. She's afraid I can. And if I can, then I'm not dependent. And if I'm not dependent, she loses leverage. "She's angry," Daniel admitted quietly. "Why?" "Because you didn't fold." "Ah. There it is. She thought you'd cancel the lease." "I don't quit over intimidation," I said simply. He sighed. "She said if this restaurant fails, it'll prove she was right." I smiled slightly. "And if it succeeds?" He didn't respond immediately. "Then she loses the narrative," he finally said. "Exactly. And Ashley thrives on narrative. On being the capable one. The organized one. The modern one. The one who handles things. But what happens when the 72-year-old woman she calls fragile builds something stronger than her marriage? That's not just embarrassing. That's threatening." Opening night was now 3 weeks away. Reservations were filling. Word of mouth was spreading faster than I expected. Local bloggers were curious about the grandmother launching a comfort food spot. They loved the name. Second serving. They thought it was charming. They had no idea how literal it was. And then something happened I didn't expect. Daniel came over without calling. Again. But this time he looked different. Not defensive. Not conflicted. Resolved. "She crossed a line," he said the moment he stepped inside. I didn't ask which one. I already knew. "She told Lily you're not well." My chest tightened. "She what?" "She told her you've been making reckless decisions. That the restaurant is a phase. That you're confused." Confused. There's that word again. When you can't control someone, you question their stability. "Lily cried," Daniel continued. "She said, 'Grandma isn't confused. She's brave.'" Brave. That word hit deeper than any insult Ashley had thrown. Brave. Not sensitive. Not old. Not fragile. Brave. Daniel sat down heavily. "I'm done making excuses for her." I watched him carefully. This wasn't heat of the moment anger. This was clarity. She tried to undermine you financially, legally, publicly, and now she's involving my daughter. He swallowed hard. I won't let her do that. There it is. The shift. Not because I argued. Not because I begged. But because patterns eventually reveal themselves. She said you're trying to compete with her, he added quietly. I smiled gently. I'm not competing. What are you doing? I'm existing. And sometimes that's enough to threaten someone who needs you smaller. He nodded slowly. I told her to stop contacting anyone about your business. And she said I was choosing you over her. Ah, the ultimatum stage. Classic. And what did you say? I asked softly. He looked me in the eye. I said I'm choosing what's right. Not me. Not her. What's right? That's growth. And growth. It changes everything. But here's what Ashley doesn't understand yet. She thinks this is about winning. About pride. About position. It's not. It's about dignity. And dignity doesn't negotiate. Opening night is 2 weeks away. The sign is up. The menu is printed. The kitchen smells like garlic and butter, and something bigger than revenge. It smells like freedom. But Ashley isn't finished. No. She has one more move planned. A public one. And it's going to force Daniel to make a final choice. In front of everyone. 2 nights before opening. That's when she made her move. We were doing a soft launch, invite only. Close friends. A few local business owners. Nothing flashy. Just a quiet preview before the official grand opening of second serving. The lights were warm. Candles flickered on every table. The smell of rosemary chicken and fresh-baked cornbread filled the air. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud without apologizing for it. Luis was plating the seafood chowder. Guests were laughing softly. Someone complimented the brick walls. This place feels like home, a woman said. That sentence alone was worth every ounce of stress. And then the door opened. Hard. Not gently. Not curiously. Hard. Ashley. Full heels. Perfect hair. Expression tight like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. The room shifted. People felt it. Energy always shifts when someone walks in looking for a fight. She scanned the room like she was evaluating property. And then her eyes landed on me. Standing behind the counter. In an apron. Smiling. Confident. Oh. Well, she said loudly, her voice cutting through conversation. This is ambitious. Ah. There it is. That tone. Not congratulations. Not pride. Evaluation. I stepped out from behind the counter slowly. Good evening, Ashley. She didn't smile. I didn't realize tonight was public. It isn't, I replied calmly. It's private. A small flicker in her eyes. Then she glanced around at the guests. So these people invested? No. She wasn't here to support. She was here to question legitimacy. No, I said evenly. They're eating. A couple guests exchanged looks. Ashley laughed lightly, but it didn't reach her eyes. I just worry, she continued, louder than necessary. Restaurants fail all the time. It's stressful. Especially for someone your age. There it is again. Your age. Luis stepped forward slightly behind me, protective. But I lifted my hand gently. I had this. Failure is possible, I said calmly. So is success. She crossed her arms. I just don't want Daniel cleaning up a mess later. Ah. So now we're public. She wanted witnesses. She wanted to plant doubt in the room. But here's what she didn't understand. You don't embarrass a woman who already survived humiliation. You don't intimidate someone who already ate leftovers with a smile. I took a slow breath. Daniel isn't financially involved, I said clearly. Everything here is mine. Her jaw tightened. And when it gets overwhelming? It won't. You can't guarantee that. No, I agreed gently. But neither can you guarantee I'll fail. Guests were very quiet now. Watching. Listening. Ashley stepped closer. I just think you're proving a point instead of thinking practically. Ah. Finally. The truth hiding under her concern. And what point would that be? I asked softly. She hesitated. That you're still relevant. There it is. That's the fear. Not money. Not failure. Relevance. I smiled slowly. Ashley, I said, voice steady, not loud but clear enough for the room. I was relevant before you married my son. A visible shift. Guest straightened slightly. And I'll be relevant long after this conversation. I continued. Her cheeks flushed. You're taking this personally. No. Iraplia. I'm taking it professionally. That line landed. She glanced around, realizing the room wasn't on her side. She'd expected fragility. Instead, she found composure. And composure is very hard to attack. Daniel thinks you're overextending, she tried again. I spoke to Daniel this afternoon, I said calmly. He congratulated me. That wasn't entirely untrue. He hadn't used the word. But his silence had changed. She blinked. He's not here tonight, she snapped. No, I said gently. He isn't. And that's when the door opened again. And there he was. Daniel. He'd heard enough. He'd walked in just in time to catch the tension hanging in the air. His eyes went from me to her to the guests. What's going on? He asked. Ashley turned quickly. I'm trying to prevent a disaster. He looked at her carefully. By humiliating my mother in her own restaurant. Silence. The room held its breath. I'm not humiliating her, she protested. I'm being realistic. He stepped forward slowly. Realistic would have been supporting her. Or staying home. That hit. Hard. Ashley's composure cracked slightly. She's doing this to compete with me. There it is. Out loud. Public. The truth finally slipped. Daniel frowned. Compete? With what? With my life, she snapped. With my position. She wants attention. The words hung in the air like smoke. And in that moment, I felt something unexpected. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Clarity. She never hated the restaurant. She hated losing control of the narrative. Daniel looked at her like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. My mother isn't competing with you, he said slowly. She's building something. Ashley's eyes filled with frustration. She's trying to prove she doesn't need us. I stepped forward then. Gentle. Come. I don't need leftovers, I said quietly. The room went still. Daniel looked at me sharply. Ashley froze. I needed respect, I continued. There's a difference. Ashley opened her mouth to respond. But nothing came out. Because you can argue money. You can argue business. You can't argue dignity. Daniel turned to her. You filed complaints. You called the bank. You questioned her sanity. She tried to interrupt. He didn't let her. And now you show up here? Her silence answered everything. Daniel's voice lowered. We need to talk. At home. Not here. Not publicly. But the damage? Already visible. Ashley looked around the room. Realized she'd miscalculated. And for the first time, she didn't look powerful. She looked exposed. She walked out without another word. The door shut behind her. The room slowly breathed again. Louise squeezed my shoulder gently. You okay? I nodded. I'm better than okay. Because something shifted tonight. Not just in her. In Daniel. He stayed. He didn't follow her. He sat at one of the tables quietly. And for the first time in years, he ordered his own plate. But what happens next? That's the real turning point. Because the next time Ashley and Daniel sit across from me at a table, it won't be to question me. It'll be to watch me eat. Opening night came, and went like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Every table was full. Every plate went out hot. No half portions. No shared scraps. No decorative nonsense. Just real food. Generous servings. Butter melting into mashed potatoes. Steam rising from fresh bread. And me? I stood at the center of it all. Not hiding in the kitchen. Not shrinking behind politeness. Present. Proud. Relevant. By the end of the night, we were fully booked for the next 2 weeks. Local bloggers called it the most comforting dining experience in town. One review said, "You don't just eat here, you feel seen." I read that line 3 times. Because that's all I ever wanted. To feel seen. Daniel and Ashley didn't come opening night. Not together. Daniel stopped by the next afternoon. Alone. He looked tired. Marriage tired. Conflict tired. She's embarrassed, he admitted quietly. About what? I asked. He gave a humorless smile. About being wrong. I didn't gloat. I didn't push. I simply poured him coffee. The good kind. She thinks you turned everyone against her, he continued. I didn't turn anyone, I said evenly. I stood still. That's the thing about truth. When you stand still long enough, it reveals who's unstable around you. Daniel nodded slowly. She said you made her look cruel. I raised an eyebrow gently. I didn't make her do anything. Silence. She doesn't understand why you couldn't just let it go, he added. And there it is. That phrase. Let it go. As if dignity is something you casually misplace. I did let it go, I said softly. He looked confused. I let go of expecting her to change. That landed deep. He stared into his coffee for a long time. I don't know how we got here, he whispered. I do, I said gently. He looked up. You stopped noticing. Not maliciously. Not intentionally. Just gradually. He swallowed. She says you're trying to drive a wedge between us. I smiled faintly. I'm not responsible for cracks that were already there. That's when he did something unexpected. He reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry, he said again. Not rushed. Not defensive. Just honest. And that was enough for me. Because this was never about destroying his marriage. It was about rebuilding my own respect. 2 nights later, I made a decision. I printed a simple cream-colored card. No drama. No sarcasm. Just clean lettering. You're invited to dinner. Underneath one line. Friday. 7 p.m. Second serving. I drove to their house myself. Ashley answered the door. Her expression guarded. Like she expected confrontation. I handed her the envelope. What's this? She asked coolly. An invitation. She hesitated before opening it. Her eyes scanned the card. Then flicked up to me. You're inviting us? Yes. She looked suspicious. For what? For dinner. Her jaw tightened slightly. Why? I held her gaze calmly. Because this time I'm hosting. A long pause. Daniel appeared behind her. What's going on? He asked. She invited us, Ashley said slowly, like she couldn't decide if it was a trap. Daniel looked at the card. Then at me. Friday, he asked. Yes. He nodded once. We'll be there. Ashley didn't speak. But she didn't decline either. And that was enough. Friday came. The restaurant buzzed, but I reserved one table near the window. The best one. Not hidden. Not tucked away. Centered. At 7:03 p.m., they walked in together. Ashley wore confidence like armor. Daniel looked cautious. I greeted them warmly. Welcome to second serving. Ashley glanced around. Full house. Laughter. Waitstaff moving efficiently. The sound of forks against plates. She couldn't deny it now. This wasn't a phase. It was a success. We sat. Menus placed in front of them. Real menus. Not shared plates. Not let's just split something. I didn't speak first. I let the silence stretch. Then the server approached. What can I get started for you? I looked directly at Daniel and Ashley. You should order whatever you're hungry for, I said gently. Ashley hesitated. Then ordered. A full entree. Her own. Daniel followed. When it was my turn, I didn't downplay it. I didn't say, oh, I'll just have a bite. I ordered the house special. Full portion. Appetizer. Dessert. And when the food arrived, it arrived beautifully. Hot. Whole. Mine. I picked up my fork slowly, looked at them both, and said softly, I used to think sharing scraps meant I was easygoing. Silence. I realized it just meant I was accepting less than I deserved. Ashley's eyes dropped. Daniel didn't move. I took my first bite and let it land. No ruse. No apology. No serinking. Just eating. At my table. In my restaurant. On my terms. After a few moments, Ashley spoke quietly. I didn't think it mattered that much. I nodded gently. I know. That's what made it worse. Because when something doesn't matter to you, but it wounds someone else, that's where empathy should live. She swallowed. I didn't mean to make you feel small. I know, I said again. But you did. And here's the difference now. I wasn't saying it with tears. I was saying it with strength. The dinner ended peacefully. No shouting. No dramatic exit. Just clarity. But before they left, I had one final thing to say. And it wasn't cruel. It wasn't revenge. It was a boundary. And the sentence I said that made sure I would never be handed leftovers again. Dessert arrived last. Warm apple cobbler. Vanilla ice cream melting slowly down the sides. Steam rising. Cinnamon in the air. I took my time with it. Not to prove anything. Not to perform. But because for once, no one was waiting for me to finish, so they could scrape the plate. Daniel watched me carefully. Ashley barely touched hers. And I realized something in that moment. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just eats slowly. When the plates were cleared, I folded my napkin neatly and placed it on the table. Then I looked at both of them. Not angry. Not wounded. Just steady. I need to say something, I began. They both straightened slightly. This isn't about food. Ashley inhaled softly but didn't interrupt. It was never about food. I let the silence stretch so they could sit inside that truth. It was about being treated like an afterthought. I continued. Like I should be grateful just to be included. Daniel's jaw tightened. Ashley's eyes were glassy now. Not dramatic tears, but uncomfortable awareness. I spent years feeding this family first, I said gently, making sure everyone else had enough. That part wasn't accusation. It was history. And somewhere along the way, I became the one who got what was left. No one argued. Because they couldn't. They remembered. I leaned back slightly in my chair. I don't eat what's left anymore. There it was. The sentence. Simple. Clear. Final. Ashley blinked. What does that mean? She asked quietly. It means, I said calmly, if I'm invited to dinner, I will order my own meal. Daniel nodded immediately. Of course. I continued. It means I won't laugh off being handed scraps like it's charming. Ashley swallowed. It means, I finished, if I'm not valued at the table, I will leave it. That one landed. Hard. Because now it wasn't about restaurants. It was about access. Access to me. Access to my home. Access to my presence. Daniel spoke first. You are valued, he said firmly. I know, I replied gently. And I did. That's the difference now. Before I hoped I was valued. Now I require it. Ashley finally lifted her eyes to meet mine. I didn't realize I was doing that, she said softly. I believed her. But here's what people don't understand. Intent doesn't erase impact. You don't have to mean harm to cause it, I said kindly. Tears slid down her cheeks now. I felt like you were judging me all the time, she admitted. Ah, there it is. The insecurity. I wasn't judging you, I said honestly. I was watching you. She gave a shaky laugh through tears. That's worse. No, I said gently. It's honest. Daniel reached for her hand. And for the first time, I saw something shift in her that wasn't control. It was vulnerability. I was afraid you didn't need us, she whispered. I smiled softly. I don't need leftovers. A pause. But I do value family. That mattered. Because this was never about cutting them off. It was about correcting the dynamic. Daniel squeezed Ashley's hand. We were wrong, he said quietly. Not defensive. Not qualified. Just wrong. And hearing that, it healed something deeper than any revenge ever could. But I wasn't finished. There was one more thing. I've updated my will, I said calmly. They both looked surprised. Nothing dramatic, I added. Just structured. Daniel frowned slightly. Structured how? My house, I said evenly, is going into a trust. Ashley went still. Daniel blinked. A trust? Yes. It won't be touched, leveraged, or questioned. I held Ashley's gaze gently but firmly. And it will never be discussed without me present. The message was clear. Respect isn't optional anymore. It's contractual. Daniel nodded slowly. That's fair. Ashley looked humbled. Not defeated. Humbled. I'm sorry, she said again. This time it wasn't about saving face. It was about understanding consequence. I stood from the table. Dinner was over. Conversation finished. Lesson delivered. But as they prepared to leave, Ashley hesitated. Why did you really open this place? She asked quietly. I smiled. Because one night, my own son handed me leftovers. Silence. And I realized I deserved a full plate. That was it. No shouting. No humiliation. No cruelty. Just truth. They left differently than they arrived. Not perfectly repaired. But aware. And awareness? That's the beginning of change. But here's the part you don't see yet. Because the final piece of this story isn't about them. It's about me. What happened after that dinner? The decision I made the very next morning. The move that made sure I would never, ever, shrink again. The final chapter, and the choice that changed my life forever. The morning after that dinner, I woke up before the sun. Not because I was anxious. Not because I was replaying conversations. But because for the first time in years, I felt light. No tightness in my chest. No rehearsed speeches in my head. No wondering if I'd said too much. I walked into my kitchen barefoot, brewed my coffee, and stood by the window while the sky slowly turned pink. And I realized something powerful. Revenge wasn't opening the restaurant. Revenge wasn't making Ashley sit there and watch me eat a full plate. Revenge wasn't the trust. Revenge was this feeling. Peace. You see, people think revenge has to be loud, dramatic, humiliating. But the real kind? It's quiet. It's when the person who tried to shrink you has to adjust to your full size. Second Serving became more than a restaurant. It became a place where older couples held hands across tables. Where single mothers brought their kids for a warm meal that didn't feel rushed. Where college students came when they missed home cooking. And every single plate that left my kitchen was full. I made that rule clear. No half portions unless requested. Luis joked that I was starting a generosity rebellion. Maybe I was. But here's what mattered most. I started sitting at one table every evening around 6:30 p.m. Table by the window. The best seat in the house. And I ordered. Not because I was hungry, but because I was visible. Because I would never again own a place and act like a guest in it. Daniel and Ashley came back the following week. Not for confrontation. Not for correction. Just dinner. They made a reservation like everyone else. They waited to be seated. They ordered their own meals. And when my plate arrived, Daniel said something that healed more than he'll ever understand. Mom should be served first. Simple. But intentional. Ashley nodded in agreement. No sarcasm. No resistance. Growth doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like small corrections repeated consistently. A month later, something unexpected happened. Ashley asked to meet me. Alone. We sat at my window table again. She looked nervous. I've been thinking, she said quietly, about why I reacted the way I did. I didn't interrupt. I felt threatened, she admitted. You were independent in a way I didn't expect. I smiled gently. Independence isn't contagious, I said. It doesn't take anything from you. She nodded slowly. I grew up watching women compete for space, she continued. I didn't realize I was doing that with you. There it was. Not cruelty. Conditioning. I wasn't competing, I said softly. I was reclaiming. That word settled between us. Reclaiming. She reached across the table. Not dramatically. Just honestly. I don't want to be the kind of woman who hands another woman leftovers. And for the first time, I believed her. 6 months later, Second Serving expanded. We added outdoor seating, weekend brunch, and a small plaque by the entrance that reads, "Everyone deserves a full plate." People think it's about food. It's not. It's about dignity. About not accepting scraps of respect. About understanding that inclusion without value is just decoration. And here's the truth I want you to hold on to. If you've ever been handed leftovers, emotionally, financially, relationally, you don't have to flip the table. You don't have to scream. You don't have to destroy anyone. You just have to build your own. Because when you own the table, you decide what gets served. Now every Friday night, my granddaughter Lily sits with me at that window table. She watches me greet guests. She sees people thank me. She sees her grandmother not as fragile, but as formidable. Last week she asked, "Grandma, why did you name it second serving?" I smiled. Because sometimes, I told her, life gives you another chance to do things right. She grinned. Does that mean thirds are possible too? I laughed. Oh honey, I said, picking up my fork. There's always more if you refuse to settle for less. And that's the real ending. Not the apology. Not the confrontation. Not even the restaurant. The ending is this. I don't shrink anymore. I don't apologize for taking up space. And I don't eat what's left. I serve myself first. And if you've been sitting quietly at someone else's table, waiting for permission, consider this your invitation. Pull out the chair. Order the full plate. And never, ever thank someone for scraps again.